Marcus pulled his baseball cap low over his eyes as he walked through the employee entrance of his own store. The security camera above the door didn't recognize him, exactly what he wanted. For weeks, customer complaints had been piling up on his desk. Staff rudeness, discrimination, poor service. His management team kept assuring him everything was fine, but the complaints told a different story. He'd decided to see for himself. No expensive suits today, no luxury watch, no driver waiting outside, just worn jeans, a plain t-shirt, and old sneakers. He looked like any other job applicant walking through those doors. The morning manager, Janet, barely looked up when he approached her desk. "Yeah?" she said, not bothering to hide her annoyance at being interrupted. "I'm here about the cashier position," Marcus said quietly. "I called yesterday." Janet's eyes swept over him. Dismissively, she pulled out a crumpled application form and tossed it across the desk. "Fill this out. You got experience?" "Some retail work," Marcus lied smoothly. "I really need this job." "Don't they all?" Janet muttered under her breath. She pointed toward a row of plastic chairs. "Wait over there, I'll call you when I'm ready." Marcus sat down and watched. In the next hour, 3 other people came in for interviews. A young white woman got Janet's full attention, smiles, detailed explanations about benefits, even a personal tour of the store. An older Hispanic man received polite but brief treatment. Then Marcus watched Janet handle a young black woman's application. The same dismissive tone, the same irritated sighs, the same finger pointing toward the plastic chairs. His stomach tightened. This was exactly what he'd feared. When Janet finally called him over, her expression made it clear she was doing him a favor. "We start at minimum wage, 2 weeks probation. You mess up once, you're gone. We don't tolerate tardiness, attitude, or theft. You understand?" Marcus nodded. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. sharp. Don't be late." As he walked out, Marcus realized this was going to be harder than he thought, but he had to know the truth. The alarm buzzed at 5 a.m. Marcus had barely slept, his mind racing with what he might discover. He drove his oldest car to work, parked in the employee lot, and walked through those doors again. The morning shift supervisor, Rick, looked him up and down with obvious skepticism. "You're the new guy, Marcus?" "Yes, sir. Let me guess. You'll last about a week before you stop showing up." "They always do." Rick's tone was flat, resigned. "Come on, I'll show you Register 3. Try not break anything." The training was minimal. Scan items, hit buttons, take money. Rick explained the basics in about 10 minutes, then left Marcus with Sarah, a teenage cashier who seemed friendly enough. "Don't let Rick get to you," she whispered. "He's like that with everyone new. Especially," she glanced around and lowered her voice even more, "especially people like you and me." Marcus raised an eyebrow. Sarah was white, blonde, clearly not facing the same issues he suspected he would, but her comment intrigued him. "What do you mean?" "You know, people who actually need this job. Rick thinks if you're not here for fun money, you're somehow beneath him." Sarah shook her head. "He treats the college kids great, but one who looks like they really need work, different story." The morning rush started, and Marcus found himself face to face with the customers his stores served. Most were pleasant enough, but he began noticing patterns, how some customers looked right through him, spoke to him like he wasn't quite human, or grew impatient when he took an extra second to process their payment. Around noon, everything changed. 2 cashiers at registers 5 and 6 started talking during a lull. Their voices carried just enough for Marcus to hear clearly, and what he heard made his blood run cold. "Did you see Janet hired another one?" The first voice belonged to Ashley, a cashier he'd noticed earlier. She was young, well-dressed, and had been chatting easily with management all morning. "Another what?" replied Brittany from Register 6. "You know, another one of them." Marcus kept scanning items, but his hands began shaking slightly. He pretended to focus on his work while straining to hear every word. "Oh, the new guy at Register 3. Brittany's voice dropped to what she thought was a whisper. "Yeah, I noticed. Janet's really scraping the bottom of the barrel now." Marcus felt his chest tighten, but he forced himself to keep working. A customer approached his register. an elderly white woman with a full cart. He smiled politely and began scanning her items. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How are you today?" The woman barely acknowledged him, instead looking around as if searching for a different cashier. When she finally made eye contact, her expression was cold. Meanwhile, Ashley and Brittany continued their conversation, unaware that every word was burning into Marcus's memory. "I give him 3 days," Ashley said with a laugh. "They never last long anyway. Too lazy to do real work. Janet should have hired that cute girl who came in yesterday instead. At least she looked professional." Marcus remembered the young white woman from yesterday, the one who got Janet's full attention and personal tour. His hands moved automatically, scanning items while his mind raced. The elderly customer in front of him grew impatient. "Excuse me, are you going to finish sometime today? I have other places to be." "I'm sorry, ma'am, almost done." Marcus kept his voice steady, professional.
"Well, maybe next time I'll choose a different line, one with someone more competent."
The word competent hit him like a slap. He'd heard that code word before, along with professional and qualified, all ways people avoided saying what they really meant. As the customer left, Ashley's voice carried again. "See what I mean? They can't even handle simple customer service. Why does Janet keep hiring them?" "Company policy, probably," Brittany replied. "You know, diversity quotas and all that political correctness garbage. They have to hire a certain number to avoid lawsuits." Marcus's vision blurred for a moment. These weren't just random employees making offhand comments. These were his employees in his stores, talking about people who looked like him as if they were problems to be tolerated rather than human beings deserving respect. But what shook him most was the casual nature of it all. They weren't whispering out of shame or guilt. They were just sharing what they considered normal workplace conversation. Sarah appeared beside him during a brief lull. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Marcus managed a weak smile. "Just tired. First day nerves, I guess." "It gets easier," she said kindly. Then, glancing toward Ashley and Brittany, her expression darkened. "Don't listen to those two. They think they're better than everyone." As Sarah walked away, Marcus realized this was bigger than he'd imagined. This wasn't just about poor customer service or a few bad employees. This was about the culture he'd unknowingly allowed to grow in his own stores. The afternoon brought new revelations. During his lunch break, Marcus sat in the employee room and watched the dynamics he'd never seen from his executive office. The room had invisible but clear divisions, certain tables for certain people, conversations that stopped when the wrong person walked by, and a pecking order that had nothing to do with job performance. Rick, the shift supervisor, walked in and surveyed the room like a general inspecting troops. His gaze lingered on Marcus, with obvious disapproval. "How's the new guy working out?" Rick asked Ashley loud enough for everyone to hear. "Slow," she replied without looking up from her phone. "Customers are already complaining." Marcus knew this was a lie. He'd had no complaints, and in fact several customers had been polite and patient. But he said nothing, just ate his sandwich and listened. "They usually are," Rick said with a knowing nod. "Don't worry, he won't last long. They never do when they actually have to work." After lunch, Marcus was assigned to help with stock in the back room. Here, away from customer eyes, the conversations became even more revealing. Jake, a stock supervisor, immediately began treating Marcus like he was either stupid or dangerous. Every instruction was repeated multiple times, every task was double-checked, and every mistake, real or imagined, was noted with exaggerated frustration. No, Jake said when Marcus began organizing items according to the clearly posted system. "That's not how we do it. Let me show you again." Marcus had literally designed this inventory system years ago, but he played dumb and let Jake explain it incorrectly. When Marcus gently suggested the method that was actually posted on the wall, Jake's face reddened. "Look, I've been doing this for 5 years. I think I know better than someone who started today." The afternoon wore on, and Marcus began documenting everything mentally. The casual racism, the deliberate obstacles, the way certain employees were given harder tasks, while others got easy assignments. It was a system designed to make some people fail while others succeeded effortlessly. But the worst part was how normalized it all seemed. Nobody questioned it, nobody objected, and nobody seemed to think there was anything wrong with treating their co-workers as less than human. At 4 p.m., Marcus witnessed something that made him physically ill. A customer had spilled coffee near register 2. Ashley was supposed to clean it up, but instead, she called across the store, "Hey Marcus, clean up on aisle 2. Marcus walked over with cleaning supplies, but Ashley stopped him. "Actually, that's not your job. Let me get someone more appropriate." She then called over Jamal, another black employee who worked in maintenance. "Jamal, can you handle this spill? It's more your department anyway." Jamal looked confused. "Ashley, spills are usually handled by whoever's closest. Marcus is right here with supplies. Just do it, okay? That's what you're paid for." The humiliation wasn't lost on Marcus. Ashley was deliberately making sure the black employees handled the dirty work while she maintained her position at the register. As the day ended, Marcus knew tomorrow would bring even more revelations. But tonight he had to process what he'd learned. His stores weren't just failing his customers, they were failing his employees too. Day 2 started with Marcus arriving early, hoping to observe the morning routines without interference. He parked across the street and watched through the large front windows as employees arrived for their shifts. The patterns were immediate and obvious. White employees entered through the front, chatting casually with management. Black and Hispanic employees used the side entrance, received minimal acknowledgement, and immediately began setting up their workstations without any social session. When Marcus entered for his shift, Janet barely looked up from her coffee. "You're back. Surprising." "Yes, ma'am. Ready to work." "We'll see about that." The morning started quietly, but around 10 a.m., everything escalated. A customer approached register 3 with an expensive electronic item and a receipt, claiming he needed to return it. Marcus examined the receipt carefully. The date was from 2 weeks ago, well within the return policy, but something seemed off. The receipt looked fresh, and the item showed signs of heavy use. "I'm sorry, sir, but I need to call my supervisor for returns over $50, Marcus said politely. The customer's demeanor immediately changed. "What's the problem?" "It's a simple return." "No problem at all, sir. It's just store policy for items this expensive." When Rick approached, the customer's complaint was swift and pointed. "This cashier is giving me a hard time about a simple return. I shop here all the time, and I've never had this kind of treatment." Rick barely glanced at the receipt before turning to Marcus with barely contained anger. "What's the issue here?" Marcus quietly explained his concerns about the receipt's condition and the item's obvious wear. In his executive role, he would have praised an employee for being so thorough, but Rick's response was immediate and humiliating. "Just process the return. Stop making problems where there aren't any." The customer smiled smugly as he walked away with his refund. Marcus realized he'd just been forced to approve what was likely fraud, simply because questioning it was seen as overstepping his place. But that wasn't the worst part of the day. During the lunch rush, Marcus overheard a conversation between Janet and Rick that made his stomach drop. "The new guy is causing problems," Rick said. "Customers are complaining." "What kind of problems?" "You know the usual. Attitude, being difficult, making people uncomfortable." Marcus knew this was completely false. He'd been nothing but professional, and the only complaint had been from the customer with the suspicious return. "Should we let him go now or wait out the probation period?" Janet asked. "Let's document a few more incidents first. Make it clean." Marcus realized they were planning to fire him based on fabricated complaints. This was how they eliminated employees they didn't want, create a paper trail of false problems, then use it to justify termination. The afternoon brought the conversation that would haunt him forever. Ashley and Brittany were discussing a news story about workplace discrimination lawsuits when their conversation turned personal. "I don't understand why they always claim discrimination," Ashley said. "Maybe they just weren't good enough for the job." "Exactly," Brittany agreed. "If they worked as hard as everyone else, they wouldn't have problems. My dad says they want everything handed to them. No work ethic at all." Marcus gripped his register counter, knuckles white with tension. These weren't just ignorant comments from teenagers. This was a worldview that infected every interaction, every decision, every opportunity in his stores. As his shift ended, Marcus realized he'd seen enough. Tomorrow would be his last day undercover, but tonight he had planning to do. The changes coming to his stores would be swift, comprehensive, and permanent. Marcus arrived for his third day knowing it would be his last in disguise. But he had one more test planned, something that would reveal the true depth of the problems in his stores. He'd arranged for his assistant to call the store with a complaint about Marcus, the new cashier, a completely fabricated story about rude service and unprofessional behavior. He wanted to see how management would handle the complaint and whether they would give him a chance to defend himself. The call came at 11 a.m. Marcus watched Janet's face as she listened, nodding seriously and taking notes. "I understand completely, ma'am. We'll handle this immediately. Thank you for calling." Janet hung up and immediately summoned Rick. Their conversation was brief and decisive. "We need to terminate the new guy immediately. Customer complaint about attitude and rudeness. What did he do? Does it matter? We have enough documentation anyway." Marcus realized they were so eager to fire him that they didn't even question the validity of the complaint or consider giving him a chance to explain. But before Janet could call him over, Marcus witnessed something that crystallized everything he'd learned. A young black woman approached Ashley's register with her toddler son. The little boy was excited about a toy he'd chosen, chattering happily while his mother paid. Ashley's irritation was immediate and obvious. She rolled her eyes at the child's excitement, sighed heavily when the mother took a moment to find her wallet, and generally treated them both as nuisances rather than customers. "Can you hurry up?" Ashley said impatiently. "There are other people waiting." The mother looked around at the completely empty line behind her, confusion clear on her face. "I'm sorry, I'm going as fast as I can." "Some people just shouldn't shop during busy times," Ashley muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. The mother's face flushed with embarrassment. She quickly gathered her purchase and left, her son now quiet and confused by the hostile treatment. Marcus watched this interaction with growing rage. This wasn't about work ethic or qualifications or company policies. This was about basic human dignity, and his employees were failing that test every single day. As soon as the mother left, Ashley turned to Brittany with a satisfied smirk. "Some people need to learn patience. Did you see how she let her kid touch everything? No discipline at all. That's how they raise them, no respect for other people's property." The casual dehumanization in their voices was the final straw. Marcus had heard enough code words, witnessed enough discrimination, and seen enough of the toxic culture that had grown in his absence. Janet approached his register with Rick beside her, both wearing the satisfied expressions of people about to deliver bad news. "Marcus, we need to talk to you in the office." Marcus looked at them calmly. "Actually, Janet, I think we all need to talk, but not in your office." His tone was different now, authoritative, confident, no longer the desperate job seeker they thought they knew. "Excuse me?" Janet's eyebrows raised in surprise. Marcus reached into his wallet and pulled out his business card, watching their faces as recognition slowly dawned. "I think it's time we had a real conversation about what's been happening in my stores." The color drained from Janet's face as she stared at the business card. Rick grabbed it from her hands, reading it twice before the reality hit him. You're the owner." Marcus straightened to his full height, the submissive posture of the past 3 days completely gone. "CEO and founder, actually. And I've spent the last 3 days learning exactly what kind of people I've been beezing." Janet's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. Around them, the normal sounds of the store continued, but Marcus knew that was about to change. "Both of you call everyone to the front of the store. Every employee currently working. Now." "Sir, I can explain," Rick started. "You'll have your chance. Make the announcement." Within minutes, 15 employees had gathered near the registers, their faces showing confusion and growing concern as they noticed Marcus standing beside management instead of behind a register. Ashley and Brittany were among the group, still unaware of what was happening. Marcus could see them whispering to each other, probably wondering why the new guy was part of what looked like an important meeting. Marcus looked at each face, remembering every conversation he'd overheard, every discriminatory action he'd witnessed, every moment of casual cruelty he'd endured. "For those who don't know me, my name is Marcus Johnson, and I own this store. For the past 3 days, I've been working among you as a regular employee. and what I've seen has been deeply disturbing." The silence was deafening. Ashley's face went white as the implications hit her. "I've heard conversations about how they never last long and shouldn't be hired. I've watched customers and co-workers be treated differently based on nothing but appearance. I've seen deliberate attempts to make certain employees fail while others are given every advantage." Marcus turned to Ashley and Brittany specifically. "I heard every word you said about people like me, every dismissive comment, every stereotype, every assumption about work ethic and qualifications." Brittany looked like she might faint. Ashley tried to speak, but no words came. "Janet, Rick, your employment is terminated immediately. Security will escort you out. Your final paychecks will be mailed." "Sir, please," Janet started. "There's nothing to discuss. You created and maintained a hostile work environment, engaged in discriminatory practices, and violated every principle this company stands for." Marcus turned to Ashley and Brittany. "You're also terminated. Your conversations over the past 3 days have been noted and documented. This company has zero tolerance for discrimination, and your behavior has been completely unacceptable." The fear in the room was palpable, but Marcus wasn't finished. "For the remaining employees, understand this: major changes are coming immediately. We will have new management, new training programs, and new policies. Anyone who cannot treat every customer and co-worker with respect and dignity will find employment elsewhere." Sarah, the young cashier who had been kind to him, raised her hand tentatively. "What about those of us who tried to do the right thing?" Marcus smiled at her, the first genuine smile he'd worn in 3 days. "Those who showed integrity and kindness will be recognized and rewarded. There will be opportunities for advancement for people who share our values." He looked around the group one final time. This company was built on the principle that everyone deserves respect and opportunity. Over the next weeks, we'll be rebuilding this location to reflect those values. Anyone who wants to be part of that positive change is welcome. Anyone who doesn't can leave now. As security arrived to escort the terminated employees out, Marcus heard Ashley crying and trying to apologize. But the damage was done, and the words she'd spoken couldn't be taken back. Within an hour, the story had spread throughout the company. By the next day, Marcus had implemented new hiring practices, bias training programs, and oversight systems to prevent this from happening again. But the memory of those 3 days would stay with him forever, a reminder of how easily prejudice could hide in plain sight, and how important it was to truly know what was happening in his own company. The changes he made weren't just about policies and procedures. They were about creating a culture where every person, regardless of background, could work with dignity and respect. And it all started with 3 days spent listening to conversations he was never supposed to hear.